I lifted the glass and smiled at Elena. You picked this place, I said. So if the wine is bad, I'm blaming you. She laughed softly. You always blame me, Adrian. I leaned back in my chair. Only when you deserve it. She tilted her head, watching me closely. You look tired, she said. I shrugged. Work, it never ends. She reached across the table, brushing my hand. You should slow down, I smiled at her, the same way I always did. I have you, that's enough. She didn't reply right away. That should have been my first warning. I took a sip of the wine and frowned. This tastes off, she smiled. It's expensive. You just don't understand taste. I laughed. Yeah, maybe. I drank again, ignoring the strange bitterness. So, I said, you wanted to celebrate something? She nodded. Us. I felt something tighten in my chest, but I thought it was just emotion. Us, I repeated. Then I noticed her eyes shift, just for a second past me. I turned slightly. Marcus? I said. He stepped closer, hands in his pockets. Hey, brother, he said. I smiled weakly. You're late. Traffic, he said casually. I laughed. Same excuse I used. Elena chuckled, but it sounded forced now. I set the glass down. Why are you both acting weird? I asked. Elena leaned back. You're imagining things. Marcus stayed standing behind her, silent. Sit down, I told him. He didn't move. Marcus? I repeated. My chest burned suddenly, sharp and deep. I grabbed the table. What is this? I whispered. Elena didn't answer. Marcus finally spoke. You were always too trusting, he said. I looked at him, confused. What are you talking about? My vision blurred. My hands shook. Elena? I reached toward her. She didn't take my hand. Why? I asked, my voice breaking. She looked at me with cold eyes I had never seen before. Because you had everything, she said quietly. And you gave it so easily, I shook my head. I gave it to you. Marcus laughed softly. Exactly. My breath became heavy. No, this isn't real, I said. You wouldn't. We already did, Elena interrupted. I tried to stand, but my legs failed. I fell to the floor, gasping. Help me, I whispered. Marcus stepped closer, looking down at me. You should have been smarter, he said. I coughed, my chest on fire. I trusted you, I said. My voice felt small, weak. Elena stood up slowly. That was your mistake, she replied. I felt tears in my eyes, not from pain but from betrayal. Was any of it real? I asked. She hesitated for a second. Then she looked away. That was my answer. My body felt cold. My heartbeat slowed. Adrian, Marcus said, crouching beside me. You were a good friend. I laughed weakly. Then why? He didn't answer. I turned my head toward Elena one last time. I would have died for you, I whispered. She didn't respond. My vision faded. The room grew dark. My last thought wasn't anger. It was regret. I was a fool, I said under my breath. Then everything disappeared. I woke up gasping. No, I grabbed my chest, expecting pain, but there was nothing. No burning. No poison. Just air. I sat up quickly, breathing hard. I was dead, I whispered. My hands shook as I looked around. This isn't the restaurant. I stood up slowly. This is my apartment? I walked toward the mirror, my heart racing. No way! I touched my face. Same scar, same eyes. This is before. I turned toward the table and grabbed my phone. My fingers trembled as I unlocked it. The date, I froze. This is years before that night. I stepped back. This can't be real. I looked around again. Everything was exactly the same. Am I dreaming? I asked myself. I slapped my face lightly. Wake up. Nothing changed. I laughed nervously. Okay, think. I paced the room. If this is real, then I'm alive again. I stopped. Alive before they killed me. My chest tightened, not from pain this time, but from memory. Elena, I whispered. Her smile flashed in my mind. Then Marcus. His cold voice. You were too trusting. I clenched my fists. No, not this time. I walked back to the mirror and stared at myself. You died, I said quietly. You trusted them and you died. My reflection stared back at me. So what now? I asked. I took a deep breath. Now you don't make the same mistake. I grabbed my phone again and scrolled through my messages. Elena's name appeared. Hey, are we still meeting tonight? I read it out loud. My hands tightened. This is the beginning, I said. This is where it all started. I typed slowly. Yeah, same place. I hit send, then stared at the screen. I'm walking back into it, but this time I know everything. I sat down and ran my hands through my hair. Think, Adrian, think. I closed my eyes, replaying everything I remembered. The deal: Marcus needed money. Elena helped him. They used me. I opened my eyes, so I changed that. I stood up again. No more blind trust. I pointed at my reflection. You watch. You listen. You wait. I let out a slow breath. Revenge isn't rushing in. I shook my head. It's planning. I picked up my jacket. They think I'm the same man. I smirked slightly. Good, let them think that. My phone buzzed. I looked at it. Marcus. Brother, see you tonight, I read. I laughed quietly. Brother. I shook my head. You stood there and watched me die, I typed back. Yeah, see you. I locked the phone and slipped it into my pocket. Same night. Same people. I walked toward the door and paused. But not the same ending, I said. I opened the door slowly. This time, I whispered, stepping out. I'm not the one who loses everything. I walked into the restaurant and spotted Elena immediately. You're late, she said with a playful smile. I forced a small laugh. Traffic, I replied, pulling out the chair. You always blame traffic, she teased. I shrugged. It's always traffic. I sat down and looked at her carefully. Same eyes. Same smile. But now I saw something else. Something fake. You look tired, she said, reaching for my hand. I let her hold it. Just work, I said. You should rest more, she added softly. I nodded. Maybe I will. Inside, I was watching everything, every word, every movement. She tilted her head. You're quiet today, I smiled slightly. Just thinking. She leaned closer. About what? I met her eyes. About us. She smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes this time. That's a good thing, right? She asked. I chuckled. Depends. She pulled her hand back slowly. You're acting strange, she said. I shook my head. No, just tired. I picked up the menu to avoid her gaze. Order something? I added. I'll have what you're having, she said. I nodded. Of course you will. A few minutes later, I saw him. Marcus walked in like nothing had ever happened. Adrian, he said, spreading his arms. I stood up and let him hug me. Brother, he said. My hands almost pushed him away, but I stopped myself. Good to see you. I replied. He pulled back and looked at me. You look like hell, he joked. I laughed lightly. Work. I said again. Elena smiled at him. You're late, she said. Traffic, he replied. I smirked. Of course. Marcus sat down behind Elena, just like before. I noticed it immediately. Sit here, I said, pointing to the empty chair beside me. He hesitated. I'm fine here, he replied. I shrugged. Suit yourself. My eyes flickered between them. Small looks. Small signals. Things I had ignored before. So, Marcus said, big plans tonight? I leaned back. Just dinner. Elena nodded. Just us. I tapped my fingers lightly on the table. Yeah, just us. My voice stayed calm, but inside I was already calculating. Adrian, Elena said softly. You trust me, right? I looked at her, holding her gaze longer than usual. Of course, I said. Marcus smiled faintly. That's our Adrian, he added. I chuckled. Yeah, you're Adrian. I lifted the glass of wine and stared at it for a second. Something wrong? Elena asked. I shook my head. No, just thinking. I put the glass down without drinking. I'll pass tonight, I said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Since when do you refuse wine? I smiled. Since today. Elena leaned back, watching me closely. You've really changed, she said. I shrugged. People change, Marcus laughed. Not you. I looked at him calmly. You sure about that? He paused for a moment, then smiled again. Yeah, he said. I'm sure. I leaned forward slightly, my voice steady. Then keep believing that. Elena frowned slightly. Adrian, I waved my hand lightly. Relax, I'm just tired. Inside, I wasn't tired. I was awake for the first time. Trust me, I told myself silently. This time, you're the one in control. I sat across from Elena the next evening, scrolling through my phone. You've been on that thing all day, she said, crossing her arms. I glanced up. Work, I replied. She sighed. You always say that. I shrugged. Because it's true. She leaned forward. You used to tell me everything. I locked my phone and placed it on the table. And I still do, I said calmly. She frowned. No, you don't. I smiled slightly. Maybe I just learned to keep some things to myself. She stared at me. Since when? I leaned back, since I realized not everything needs to be shared. She went quiet for a moment. You don't trust me? She asked softly. I looked straight at her. I trust you, I said. The words came out easily, but they meant nothing now. She studied my face. It doesn't feel like it, I chuckled lightly. You're overthinking, she shook her head. No, something's different. I picked up my glass of water. People change, Elena. She leaned back, clearly annoyed. You're being distant. I shrugged. I'm being careful. She blinked. Careful? I smiled faintly. With my time, with my work, with everything. Later that night, I sat alone in my apartment, reviewing documents. Let's see what you've been hiding, I muttered. I opened a file Marcus had sent me days ago. Numbers didn't add up. You're already cutting corners, I whispered. My phone buzzed. It was Marcus. Adrian, I need your approval on the deal. He said when I answered. I leaned back in my chair. Send me the full report. He hesitated. You don't trust me? He asked. I smiled slightly. I trust results, I replied. He laughed nervously. You've changed. I ended the call. Not enough, I said under my breath. The next morning, I met Elena again. She looked tired. Did you sleep? I asked. She nodded quickly. Yeah. I tilted my head. You sure? She forced a smile. Why are you asking like that? I shrugged. Just curious. Her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it quickly, then flipped it over. Who was that? I asked casually. No one, she said. I raised an eyebrow. No one usually doesn't text twice in a row. She looked at me sharply. Why are you checking? I laughed softly. Relax. I'm not checking. I'm noticing. She went silent. That was the moment I saw it clearly, the crack. The small break in her perfect act. I leaned forward slightly. You seem nervous, I said. She shook her head. I'm not. I nodded slowly. Okay. I let the silence sit between us. She tapped her fingers on the table. Adrian, if something's wrong, just say it. I smiled faintly. Nothing's wrong. She looked frustrated. Then why does it feel like everything is? I held her gaze. Maybe because you know something I don't. She froze for a second. Just a second. But I saw it. That hesitation told me everything. I leaned back again, calm and steady. Don't worry, I said. I'm not going anywhere. She forced a small smile. Good, she said, because I need you. I nodded slowly. I know. Inside, I felt something shift. Not pain, not anger, clarity. So it was never love, I whispered later, standing alone by my window. The truth hurt, but it also set me free. I wasn't losing anything anymore. I was taking control. I walked into the office and stopped when I saw her. Lena? I said, surprised. She turned and raised an eyebrow. Adrian? She replied. Didn't expect to see you here. I stepped closer. I thought you moved to another company, she shrugged. I did. Then I realized this place still had unfinished business. I smirked slightly. That sounds serious. She crossed her arms. It usually is. I studied her for a moment. In my past life, I had ignored her. This time I wouldn't make that mistake. Coffee? I asked. She looked at me carefully. You're different, she said. I smiled. Yeah, I get that a lot lately. We sat across from each other, cups in hand. So what changed? She asked directly. I leaned back. Let's just say I started paying attention. She nodded slowly. About time, I chuckled. You always were honest. She tilted her head. And you always avoided it. I sighed. Not anymore. She tapped her fingers lightly on the table. All right, then tell me something real. I looked at her. I don't trust the people around me anymore. She didn't react with shock. Instead, she nodded. Good, she said. You shouldn't. I raised an eyebrow. That quick? She leaned forward. I've seen things, Adrian. Deals that don't make sense. People acting like they're hiding something. I smirked. You're not wrong. She studied me again. Who? She asked. I shook my head. Not yet. She leaned back. So you want help, but you won't share? I smiled slightly. I want an ally, not a risk. She laughed softly. Fair enough. She took a sip of her coffee. Then here's my condition. I crossed my arms. I'm listening. She looked straight at me. No lies. I nodded without hesitation. Deal. She extended her hand. I shook it firmly. Welcome to the game, I said. She smirked. Oh, I've been in it longer than you think. Later that day my phone buzzed. Marcus. I answered calmly. What's up? I said. His voice sounded tense. I need to talk. I leaned back in my chair. About? He hesitated. The deal, it's not going through. I pretended to sound surprised. Really? He sighed. Something went wrong. Information leaked. I raised an eyebrow. That's unfortunate. He lowered his voice. I need your help to fix it. I looked out the window. Do you? I asked quietly. He paused. Adrian, you always help me. I smiled faintly. Maybe I shouldn't always do that. There was silence on the other end. What's that supposed to mean? He asked. I leaned forward slightly. It means you need to start handling your own problems. He sounded frustrated. This isn't like you. I laughed softly. Yeah, I know. He exhaled sharply. Fine, forget it. The call ended. I placed my phone down and stared at it. That's one step, I muttered. That evening, I met Lena again. You look satisfied, she said. I shrugged. Small progress. She raised an eyebrow. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I thought for a moment, not enjoying controlling. She nodded slowly. That's more dangerous, I smirked. Only for them. She leaned forward. And for you? I paused. I won't lose control, I said firmly. She held my gaze for a moment, then nodded. Good, she said. Because once you start this, there's no going back. I looked at her calmly. I already went through the worst, I said. This time, I added quietly, I'm not the one falling. I wasn't Marcus's support anymore, I was his problem. Elena slammed the door behind her. You're hiding something, she said, her voice sharp. I looked up from my desk. That's a strong accusation, I replied calmly. She stepped closer. Don't play games with me. I leaned back in my chair. I'm not playing. She crossed her arms. Then explain why you've been distant. Secretive and cold, I smiled faintly. Maybe I'm just busy. She shook her head. No, I know you. I tilted my head slightly. Do you? She froze for a moment. Of course I do, she said quickly. I nodded slowly. Then you should know I don't like being questioned like this. She stared at me, searching my face. You've changed, she said again. I shrugged. People keep saying that. She pointed at my desk. What are you working on? I glanced at the papers. Work. She stepped closer, trying to read them. I closed the file calmly. Private, I added. She frowned. Since when do you keep things from me? I met her eyes. Since I realized not everything needs to be shared. She let out a frustrated breath. This isn't you, I smirked slightly. Maybe this is the real me. She went silent, clearly unsettled. Later, my phone buzzed. Marcus. I answered without hesitation. What now? I asked. He sounded tense. We need to meet. I leaned back. About your failed deal? He sighed. You heard about that? I chuckled. News travels fast. He lowered his voice. Something's wrong. Someone is messing with me. I tapped my fingers on the desk. That's unfortunate. He sounded irritated. Adrian, I'm serious. I nodded slightly. So am I, he paused. You're not helping. I smiled faintly. Maybe you should start helping yourself. He exhaled sharply. You're acting different. I ended the call. Good, I muttered. That night, I sat alone, reviewing everything I had gathered. That's, I whispered, scrolling through the files. Marcus, you're deeper in trouble than I thought. I leaned forward. And Elena, I opened another document. Messages. Transfers, plans, my jaw tightened. You're using me as your way out, I said quietly. My phone buzzed again. Elena, I answered. What? I asked. She hesitated. Can we talk? I looked at the screen for a second. We're already talking. She sighed. Not like this. I stood up and walked to the window. Fine, say what you want. She sounded softer now. You've been pushing me away. I looked out at the city lights. Maybe I needed space. She was quiet for a moment. Did I do something wrong? I almost laughed. You tell me, I replied. She hesitated. I don't know. I closed my eyes briefly. Exactly, I said. She sounded hurt. Why are you talking like this? I opened my eyes again. Because I'm tired of pretending. She went silent. Pretending what? She asked carefully. I smiled faintly, even though she couldn't see it. That everything is perfect, I said. There was a long pause. Adrian, she started, but stopped. I ended the call. I placed my phone down slowly. So that was the plan, I muttered. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't confused anymore. I was focused. Every lie they told, every move they made, I would turn it against them.